Good morning, and welcome to the First Existentialist Congregation of Atlanta. We are a philosophically based spiritual community founded on existential philosophy and feminist principles and dedicated to human liberation and the protection of the natural world. My name is Patton White, and I will be facilitating this morning's Sunday celebration of life. We make our spiritual home in the old stone church, which was hand-built 100 years ago by the African-American Antioch East Baptist Church. We honor their labors of love and the powerful history of this special place. We acknowledge that our spiritual home stands on land forcibly taken from the Muskogee Creek people. We support justice and equality for all Indigenous people. Our opening words this morning are a poem entitled Poem 133, The Summer Day. Who made the world? Who made the swan and the black bear? Who made the grasshopper? This grasshopper, I mean. The one who has flung herself out of the grass, the one who is eating sugar out of my hand, who is moving her jaws back and forth instead of up and down, who is gazing around with her enormous and complicated eyes. Now she lifts her pale forearms and thoroughly washes her face. Now she snaps her wings open and floats away. I don't know exactly what a prayer is. I do know how to pay attention, how to fall down into the grass, how to kneel down in the grass, how to be idle and blessed, how to stroll through the fields, which is what I have been doing all day. Tell me, what else should I have done? Doesn't everything die at last and too soon? Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? This is a poem by Mary Oliver, again entitled The Summer Day. This morning we have a congregational song that is very familiar to our members. It is This Little Light of Mine, and our musicians Jean Heinrich, Mick Kinney, and Robert Stewart leading us in this song. Please rise in body or spirit as you are willing and able.
Okay, we're going to shine. excellent musicians.
Thank you so much to the musicians. Always a wonderful, uplifting song, and definitely one of our First E staples. Today's speaker is our own fellowship minister, the Reverend Marsha Mitchiner. Reverend Marsha Mitchiner was ordained by us, the First Existentialist Congregation, after several years of study with founding minister R. Lanier Clance. Today, she is part of the connective tissue of our congregation, holding together disparate elements, reaching out to folks whom we haven't heard from recently, and comforting those who need support. She plays in the dirt whenever she can, refreshes herself with her partner on trips to the Georgia mountains, and shares her thinking with us several times each year. Please join me in welcoming our Reverend Marsha Mitchiner.
Good morning. Well, I don't know about you, but personally, I'd like to erase much of 2020-21 and all of 2020. It's been kind of a difficult time for me, not just from a basic survival standpoint, but more on an emotional, human level. When 2020 began, I was already feeling stressed and angry because of the political and social situation that we were in the country. It just seemed to me that what I saw and heard threatened the concept that I had of what a democracy should be and what equality and justice should look like, especially in this country. But through the misrepresentation, the fear-mongering, and the totally inept policies of the political leaders at the time, the COVID pandemic quickly spread and got out of control in the United States. Well, as usual, those that bear the brunt of this are the poor. Generally speaking, they are the black and the brown people, the indigenous people. Even during this time, it was not uncommon for people of Asian descent, whether they were native-born or immigrants, that they were the victims of violence, just random acts of violence. So here I am. I'm sitting in my comfortable house in my predominantly white middle-class neighborhood, and I'm watching TV. I'm watching this all unfold on TV, and but still, as distant as I was physically from this, I felt overwhelmed by it. I was overwhelmed by the suffering that I saw, the people who were laying in hospitals, that they were dying, the first responders, the people who were driving buses, the people who were janitors, and even doctors and nurses that were trying their best to heal people, to keep people safe, to get people out of the hospital. That all of these people, it just was overwhelming to see all of this suffering. And I felt helpless. I just, it was just a horrible feeling inside, to feel so helpless because I couldn't stop it. And this helplessness was just heightened by all of the stress that I was already feeling because of what had been going on in the years before that with the administration. And so this just kind of ran this anxiety, this sense of stress and and this worry over all the suffering began to work its way into full-blown anxiety and depression. So I felt totally depleted of energy, and I was very low, on the sense of hope. So the question is, what do you do when the well runs dry? So here I am mulling over these feelings and feeling really anxious and depressed. But I remembered these two quotes that even got me to smile and almost laugh. And so the two quotes are, first there was Aldous Huxley that said, rolling in the muck is not the best way of getting clean. And similar to that, the second quote that was unlikely has been attributed to Mark Twain, Abraham Lincoln, among two folks, that it stated, never wrestle with a pig. You just get dirty, and the pig enjoys it. You're probably thinking, what is she talking about? And why would these quotes make her smile when I'm dealing with these feelings of dismay and impotence? Well, it's because they take me by the proverbial shoulders, they shake me, and they remind me that I'm not some omnipotent god goddess, that I can't fix the world around me, but I can do my best, and that is what I must do. So what do you do when the well runs dry? Well, during the past 17 months or so that we've been having to do Zoom through First D, I have listened on Sunday, most Sundays, to the speakers, and I've found that to be really important, to my well-being. I've listened to, and I'll just name a few, Loretta Ross. She did a wonderful talk on calling in people, calling them in, and if you don't agree with them, but you call them in and you try to form a bridge so that you get to a place of some kind of understanding. Anthony Knight blew me away July the 4th when he talked about a black man's perspective on July the 4th and the idea of independence here in the United States. It was a perspective that he fine-tuned, and I've never thought of it in exactly that way. And it opened my eyes, it opened my heart, and I really appreciated his willingness to open himself and share that with us. Then there was a man named, it was Dr. Heval Kelly, I may not pronounce that right, but he was a refugee from Syria, a Kurdish refugee from Syria that wound up going through refugee camp in Germany, and from there came over to the United States and settled in Clarkston, Georgia. He took us on this path of his journey, of what it was like to have to leave his country and live in a refugee camp, and then come to the United States. The way that he had people to help him to get into college, where he then went on to Morehouse Medical School, and then to Emory. And now he's a doctor at Emory Hospital and helps other refugees that have come into the country. The quote that I have from him that I really love is that once you choose hope, anything is possible. He's certainly a tremendous example of someone who chose hope, and look at what he's accomplished and what he's helping other people to accomplish. These speakers, their messages, they gave me comfort, but they also challenged me. They challenged me to be aware of and to connect to my feelings, but not to wallow in anger and anxiety and this sense of impotence, because that only keeps me angry, anxious, and impotent. Something to really, for me, to remind me, because I do have this unfortunate tendency to wallow in the muck. And I have to keep reminding myself. And people like this who present these kind of wonderful messages are ways that I can think about when my well, runs dry. Now, I've told you before about this, I'm pretty sure I have, about the small plaque that a friend of mine has that says, anxiety is like a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but doesn't get you anywhere. That's certainly a plaque that I need to create and put up in my own house to keep reminding me that this sense of anxiety that seems to overcome me at times, that it's kind of a pointless exercise. But the unfortunate thing is that anxiety and depression have been a part of my, it's just like an albatross, and it's been a part of my life since childhood. During stressful times, particularly like these last 18 months, I've almost felt like a dual personality, because there's this negative voice, that's created by the anxiety and the depression, but at the same time, there's this conflicting inner voice of hope and love. I am so grateful that I have that other voice that is of hope and love, and I do understand that they coexist. It's perhaps part of the human condition, but the thing is, which one is going to get the focus? Lao Tzu said, if you are depressed, you are living in the past. If you are anxious, you're living in the future. And if you are at peace, you are living in the present. Well, that's a wonderful way to look at it. I mean, it seems so simplistic, to look at it that way. But when you really break that down, you realize that it's important to learn from your past, but not to get stuck there. Not to feel like that is where your focus is. That it's important to develop plans for what you're going to do in the future, but developing the plans and then, focusing on this anxiety about, well, gosh, what happens if my plans don't work? Then that kind of diminishes the energy that you have that you're going to put forth into actualizing those plans. My therapist, the wonderful Jean Harsh, told me when I was changing jobs, and I was so anxious. I just, it's like, oh, gosh, what's going to happen if this doesn't work, if this doesn't pan out? And she said in that wise Jean Harsh way, she said, well, if that doesn't work, I guess you'll just have to try something else. She was right. Now, existentialism has helped me more fully understand, what I've talked about up to this point. The only reality that we have is the now. It's the moment that we're in right now. The past really, it exists only in our memory. And the future exists only in our capacity to plan. It's only in the now that we have this reality, living in the moment. I'm responsible for my authenticity. I am responsible for my choices. And those choices then reflect who I am. It's certainly true that my biology, my physiology may present limitations and obstacles to my choices. I may have something in my brain chemistry that causes me to be more prone to depression. But I'm still responsible for the choices that I make, given whatever these obstacles and limitations may be. I still have choices, and they're still my responsibility when I make them. I'm also very aware that inaction is in itself an action. So by not making, in our heads, we think, oh, well, I'm not going to make a choice. That is a choice. And we have to recognize that there are consequences of inaction, of not making choices, just as much as there are consequences of making choices and taking action. All of us, we are interconnected by the reality, and our freedoms are all, our choices are inextricably linked. What choices that I make have the potential to affect you. That you might think of as the butterfly, effect, the ripple concept. Again, what do you do when the well runs dry? Accepting these existential principles as my life guide helps me to climb out of the muck, out of the place of wallowing, the place of focusing on the negative, but to place my focus on action, on what can be, what I can do, the choices that I can make to move forward. And if I can't feed 100 people, well, I'll donate to feed one, maybe 5 or 10. Better than not taking any action. That choice which is an action in itself. So during these episodes of despair and inertia, I try not to beat myself up. Not always so easy. Easier said than done. Because intellectually, I understand what, what's going on. But emotionally, at that emotional level, just doesn't seem okay to feel that way. Ever been there? No, I bet you're out there nodding. Yeah, I've been there. I think it's a pretty common human construct that thinks that the way that we feel when we feel like that we haven't done enough, or that we are not good enough, those kind of feelings that are the things that help to keep us stuck, that keep us in that place of inertia and despair. Viktor Frankl spent 3 years in 4 different concentration camps, and he wrote one of my one of the books that I love to read and reread, that he wrote about his time there, the man's search for meaning. But he wrote, an abnormal reaction to an abnormal situation is normal behavior. When you really think about it, that makes a lot of sense. So in no way am I trying to say or compare, anything that I'm going through or have been through that would compare to the horrific situation that Viktor Frankl was in. But it does, his statements give me perspective. He goes on to say that when we are no longer able to change a situation, we are challenged to change ourselves. That's what I can, get from comparing, what the circumstances that I'm feeling, is that I might not be able to change the circumstance. I can change me. I can change how I'm feeling, how I'm looking at, this circumstance. What I want to focus my attention on, my energy on. He also said, when the world is in a bad state, everything will become still worse unless each of us does our best. I believe that very much, and Frankl certainly put his own those beliefs into practice each day. I hope that if you haven't, that you'll take the opportunity to read his journey in man's search for meaning. Very powerful. So how does this help me when the well runs dry? Well, I focus on the positive, on what I can do. I do things that helped me to feel better. Excuse me. I call friends. The other day, I emailed an old buddy from high school I hadn't connected with in a long time. She lives out in Oregon now, and so made a connection, with her. I've also reached out to some others that I know are going through a hard time, and having that kind of heart-to-heart, connection, that makes me feel better. I hope that it also helps them to feel better. But it takes the focus on what I can't change and put it on what I can change. I begin with little baby steps. I don't try to leap tall buildings in a single bound. But I take little steps, little actions that help me to build energy. And with each of those steps, as the energy builds, I can feel my attitude shift. I can feel the depression and the anxiety begin to feel lighter. That the part of me that is that hope and love begins to feel bigger, and pushing out, that fear, the anxiety and the depression. I love to seek out during this time, when I can get myself from wallowing in the muck. I love to seek out the connections to those who are in my community, because it's that sharing and the intimacy, the connection. It brings me life, and it anchors me in the present, in the now. It helps me not to think about and focus on the past, not to live in the past, and also not to be worried about the future that I can't control, because it's only what we have now. That's all it is. So what do I do when the well runs dry? I don't try to change the world. I try to change myself. For decades, I traded with another massage therapist, a friend of mine. And every week, we gave and received an 1.5-hour massage. Decades we've done this. And then along came COVID. We had to, of course, shut down doing all massage. And so it has been 17 very long months since I've had a massage. I consider that massage not being a luxury. I consider it to be important, not only to my physical health as a massage therapist, but also my emotional, my internal spiritual, and as well as my mental, state. To have that time to relax, to have my body attended to have some of the physical issues resolved, and give myself an opportunity to just really appreciate my body and connect my head and my body. Well, my friend has moved out of state and isn't available to trade massage with me. But I know, because I know how important it is to me, that I'll find somebody else. Now, it's not likely it's going to be somebody that I'll trade with, but cheapo me will pay for it, because I know how important it is. I know how important it is to my well-being. Audre Lorde. I love this quote from Audre Lorde. It's that caring for myself is not self-indulgent. It is self-preservation. And that is an act of political warfare. Smart woman, and I love the fact that she was able to put that into those words and share it, because it does help me to feel that it's okay. It's okay to take care of myself and to look at ways that I can take care of myself and not feel bad about doing that. You know, you can look around and there are countless, absolutely countless individuals who have overcome difficulty and tragedy and gone on to become, prominent figures in our world. Two of the ones that are, off the top of my head that I thought of immediately, of course, were people like Maya Angelou and Oprah Winfrey. Both of these women lived in their childhood. They lived in poverty, and they were physically and sexually abused. And yet, Maya Angelou, she is probably my favorite writer. That she went on to become a writer of such beautiful and an insightful poetry and prose. It touches my heart when I read it. Oprah Winfrey, God, what do we say about Oprah Winfrey? She has gone on to become a media mogul and one of the richest women, if not the richest woman. I'm not sure what the latest facts and figures are, but the richest and powerful women in the world. She's been on Time's list of 100 most influential people in the world. Tyler Perry. Tyler Perry experienced physical and sexual abuse as a child. He even, because his father beat him so much, he said that he even attempted suicide just to avoid, trying to be beaten. This was when he was a child. He didn't even finish high school, although he did get his GED. But look at what he's accomplished. He's an actor. He's a writer. He's a director. He's a producer. He is one of the richest men. And Time also has, in the 2020, listed him as one of the 100 most influential people in the world. You might not think of Franklin Roosevelt in this group of people, because Franklin Roosevelt, he was born with a silver spoon. Look at the people in his family. I mean, they were very prominent political and social figures. But in spite of his money at age 39, he was stricken with paralysis, which was permanent from his waist down. But in spite of this, he went on to become President of the United States. He was President of the United States, carried this country through the Great Depression in the 1930s and through almost all of World War II. You might say, well, he had that silver spoon. But not everybody would have, who had accomplished so much already in his life, at the point that they became, paralyzed, would have continued to think of how much they could still achieve, of how much they could still accomplish, in spite of the fact that they could not walk. And one of the really most inspiring people that I've read about in, I don't know, the last 10 years or so is a woman named Temple Grandin. She was a woman who did not even speak until she was 4 years old. She was diagnosed as a child with autism, and the doctors told her parents, you need to just put her in an institution. But her parents, wouldn't do that. Temple Grandin, in spite of her autism, went on to graduate from college, become a professor at the University of Colorado. She is one of the, she's a prolific author and is one of the recognized leaders in animal science. And she studied that because of her autism. It was a way that she was interested in how animals think and how that would might help in terms of understanding of autism. These lives reflect the consequences of hope and choices, how they responded when their well went dry. But we all have had circumstances that have created challenges in our lives. We may not have all been born in poverty or experienced sexual and physical abuse, although I know that some of you out there who are listening to this, that you have. So how do we respond in these circumstances when we are in a place of feeling despair, feeling that we have no more energy to give, that we are we're just depleted? What is it that we do? Where do we go? What do we do when our well runs dry? I hope that maybe something that I've said today, some of the words of some of these very wise people that I've quoted, might have triggered something in you that would at some point help you through a time when your well runs dry. I think it happens to all of us at some point in time. So I appreciate that you have taken the time to listen. I hope that I will see you in a few minutes over on the Zoom. And just know that I have missed you so much. I am bummed out that we're not going to be able to get together in September as we had originally planned, but it will happen. It will happen at some point, and just be ready for a big hug from me. So, bye.
Thank you so much, Marsha, for your inspiring words today. We hope that you will be able to join us on Zoom immediately after this broadcast for our meet and greet, where we will be discussing the themes that Marsha introduced in her talk, as well as sharing personal joys, sorrows, or concerns, and community announcements. You can find the link to the Zoom meeting in the chat section of today's broadcast. Next week, we will welcome our congregation member, Stell Simonton, with her talk, Getting Wiser with Age, with that question mark there right at the end. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of your day today. I hope that you have a great week, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.